do not think about your country, your nation state as a sole corporation. They have overlap, but they are not to be treated equal because the main stakeholdership in a nation is and always will be the populace. If you destroy your populace, it doesn't matter what you do. If they sick, overworked, and tired and can't do nothing, and you shoot the morale and decrease the morale, you are going to be cooked. You would rather have morale than higher GDP because the morale is what's going to get people to continue to get up every day. When people lose hope and when people start to lose hope, your nation is going to backslide. Yo, beautiful people, the Black Anglo-Saxon, your favorite neighborhood political scientist, and I'm back. Today we are going to be really quickly talking about your boy Donald Trump. We have 50-year mortgages being proposed as a solution to access home ownership. I think that we should not be surprised about the 50-year mortgage as a proposition because this is not a creation of him, but rather a continuation of everything that has been taking place before and prior to him. I've talked about the gig economy and I've talked about, Klarna allowing people to use basically layaway as payments for DoorDash and the new collaboration that they have with them as an economic conglomerate. And I think this is just another continuation of it. I think most of us who understand what that means understands that it is a very, very ignorant proposal. One being the housing market to purchase homes to provide as rentals. So the housing availability is a crucial issue in terms of being able to curb the pricing and affordability of it, but what happens in that, again, putting it into a whole ecosystem, because I think people take that part out and just kind of isolate it. Again, one, you have people buying them, and then two, when we deal with or address illegal immigration, we're talking about having an influx of people who are offsetting the number that we're allocating to the number in which we took from maybe the census or all of the data tracks that we use to track all of this information. And so that's two, and then you also have to deal with the issue and concern that when we talk about the tariffs and when we talk about all of the things that actually increase the cost through the supply chain, so whether that be the actual materials, the price of the labor, just the regulations around what it takes to meet certain standards and codes and how much money goes into that. So whether it's permitting, having to clear, for example, I found out this interesting thing where in DC they have heritage trees and it costs an exorbitant amount of money to get rid of the heritage trees. So what that does is that tax on another dollar amount to the actual building costs of what a person is going to price and factor in into actually selling that as a unit, right? And so when you have a 50-year mortgage being posed on top of that, we also have to factor in that people are buying homes or their first home on average at 35 to 40 years old. And so when you talk about mortality rates and when you talk about somebody being able to even make it that far, based on, the health implications that we have here in America and everything, or the lack thereof, becomes a huge kerfuffle and a huge issue around trying to balance it, right? And so let's take the example of the gig economy. The gig economy, for most people, is a avenue to use and collect more resources, more liquid capital as a means of extracting and trading on their labor, right? But labor, people are trying to use the gig economy to solve the issue around abysmal wages. And so when you have the influx of gig jobs, and then we create a whole ecosystem around the gig economy, starting with Uber and then moving on into what you would call now the convenience industry. There's this symbiotic relationship where now we can't necessarily rid ourselves of it without causing and wreaking a lot of havoc on the way people do business, because business models have been built on top of. It's the fact that in a lot of cases, even when you are getting opportunities, the opportunities don't necessarily provide enough leverage or enough resources. That is, again, because we had the Band-Aid being slapped onto an issue around poor wages and basically, corporate domination and hedonism, where you're having people work these jobs and still have to get subsidies from the actual government. So it leaves the taxpayers to get taxed at 3 different levels. I want everybody to understand that when we have these conversations, I need people to think about what it is that they're saying when they say it. So when somebody is saying, I don't have enough money, the response to that should not be get another job or add another 8-hour shift. The issue is that for the work that you're doing, your labor is not being traded on at the same rate. Even when we talk about Obamacare, for as much as people love Obamacare, the issue with Obamacare is that we were not addressing the root cause. Yes, it allows people to have health insurance benefits at large, but the mechanics of it being a shared cost, but then also the actual healthcare conglomerate. I forget the term that a lot of people use, but basically that whole industry, that whole infrastructure then gets to come on the back end, get that as a subsidy, but then also raise the prices on the premiums. And so they win twice. But at what cost? Because it's not actually addressing the issue of the price. It's not addressing the issue of the overwhelming cost. Healthcare still is ridiculous. I can go down a list starting with trickle down as to how we have, as a nation, continued to kick the can down the road when it comes to putting Band-Aid on issues. It's social as well as economic issues. Even when we talk about climate issue, right? Again, just like this 50-year mortgage proposal, we missed the mark because we aren't considering all the things. We have traded in, the materials, so like leather, how we go about extracting the resources and the minerals from all of these different places. But we have not addressed the culture of consumption in America. Now we're going to consume more of it, similar to how some people may do with food. Like, oh, this is a healthier snack, so I'm going to eat more of that healthier snack. When it's like, no, what you're not dealing with and addressing is the actual culture of the consumption and the rate at which you're consuming, because you're still having to extract what it is you're doing. And we haven't, again, done and dealt with regulations. A lot of this stuff comes down to a lot of these industries and a lot of these juggernauts not being regulated. They think that it is not possible because of how large the corporations and the fascist state has got in terms of how government has merged with the corporations in terms of the ecosystem of it and how the money moves through it. But if you do not attack and approach that, I want everybody to know, and I want everybody to understand and be fully aware that in a situation where you're going to be at the behest of the institutions and how they actually move. One, companies, in terms of being able to buy multiple properties. So after you get like your third or your fourth, maybe there should be some additional tax, a higher tax rate in terms of, for lack of a better word, it de-incentivizes the person to want to go into that and purchase more because of the burden that comes along with it. That's one thing that can be done. So then for the housing stock that you build, you have the ability to actually keep it at a affordable rate, because the units that you're putting online aren't necessarily being gobbled up by people who are just interested in making money. And so on the other side, you can figure out ways to deregulate at the same time to make the process smoother, or you're not adding additional costs along the production line, the production chain, to increase the price of the said good. So you have this nice equilibrium. You can't be in the same game because in capitalism, it's about the money. And so, as much as I disagree with it, I understand why a company would say, "Oh, you know what? We got this, we got data, and we got this scientific research. Because we used to sell one of the most addictive cigarettes. So, we own these cookie companies now. Let's figure out a way how we can transpollinate these different products. Let's figure out a way that we can make them want more so that we can make more money, because if they want more, then they're going to buy more, they're going to purchase more, etc." But in the process of that is you're depleting, and this is where I tell people, do not think about your country, your nation state as a sole corporation. They have overlap, but they are not to be treated equal, because the main stakeholdership in a nation is and always will be the populace. If you destroy your populace, it doesn't matter what you do. If they sick, overworked, and tired and can't do nothing, and you shoot the morale and decrease the morale, you are going to be cooked. You would rather have morale than higher GDP, because the morale is what's going to get people to continue to get up every day. When people lose hope, and when people start to lose hope, your nation is going to backslide. And it is not a corporation in the sense that you can just fire and hire new people and you can just figure out a way to make it work, because that's why we are where we are. The fiscal and monetary policy, we just keep on doing quantitative easing. I understand enough to know that the reason why you probably don't want to move off the gold standard when you're talking about currency is because, as a sociologist, you want to have that tied to something that is real, that is tangible, that I can measure. Because the problem that we're in now is that we have all of these speculative markets that are like, oh, this is worth 2 trillion, this is worth 130 billion. And people just pulling numbers out because of projections. And that's what they are. And so we find ourselves in this gap of production and projections. And that's where that huge deficit and that windfall is coming in, because we project all of these things, all of this speculation, but the overall productivity is stagnant, because your solution can't be work another job, get another job, figure out how to use and do your whole 24 hours. That's why the AI boom and the AI rush is so apparent, because it's like you can only get so much out of human beings. And we're in a situation now where this is just yet another Band-Aid. Because we saw it with the auto industry as well, because 72-month leases, car loans, is a new thing. That's not how they used to do that. People were buying cars with cash. And if you were getting like a really, really, really nice car, you were putting down a hefty down payment, and the most you were probably getting was like a 36-month term. But that's also why a lot of these things are becoming more expensive. So the interest is going to be more, the product is going to be more, because they're having to take more of a risk on the services and the goods that they're selling, because people can't afford them. But because people keep buying them through credit, it's just bubbling and bubbling and bubbling and bubbling and bubbling and bubbling, because the prices are unreal, are unheard of. The mechanics and how we're assessing these things are unreal. You see a Klarna partner with a DoorDash or Uber Eats because the food is doing the same thing. It's all on the same wacky trend because nobody is putting regulations around any of this stuff. Nobody is willing to fight and say, you know what, you can't do that. No, absolutely not. And because it's Trump, people are now willing to kind of say, nah, we're not going to do that. But what I need people to do is when it's not Trump, to be having the same energy. That's what my thing is. When it is not Trump, I need us to move with the same energy, have the same smoke and have the same energy because he is doing what other people have done. He is taking the models that have been put in place and have extrapolated them and basically are using them as bludgeons. And this Trump thing, this 50-year mortgage, is garbage. But I want y'all to understand that all of the things we've been doing up until this point is also garbage. We should not have a convenience ecosystem built around exploiting the fact that corporations are not willing to pay living, thriving wages because that is why it exists. We should not have a college debt crisis that has surmounted because we have been scared to regulate the actual institutions themselves and the way they do business and how they continue to do business and continue to give out what should be considered to be predatory loans. And it can't be because my person is doing it, I'm not going to say nothing. It can't be because, oh, well, you know, they Black, so I can't really call them out on it. No, all of these things have been Band-Aids, from the social issues to the economic issues. We have not been addressing any of these issues. And that is why you see me sometimes talk trash to my elders. Not because I don't love them. Not because I think that they're stupid. I think some of them are dumb. But I think for even the ones who know, they're just scared to actually do what is necessary because, to the point of my last video, the acquiescence, that's what they've been conditioned to do. He has taken playbooks from the past. For all of my Waterboy fans, he stole Coach Klein's playbook. Coach Klein, he was sitting on the sideline and he was over there trying to figure out them plays because the opposite team, the dude who stole his playbook, roughed him off for his playbook, knew all of the plays. He knew them. So he had to come up with new plays to even be competitive because he was using his playbook. This is why in this moment, we got to do new stuff. Ask yourself, why, if you were a leader in this moment and the public operated the way that they operated, why not? Why not? And I know most of y'all are going to say because y'all are good people, and that's cool. But think about it from the side of a person who don't care about any of that, and all they focused on is increasing their bottom line or winning another election. Why would I not? They're going to go for it. So, let me know what y'all think. Hit the like button, hit the share button, leave a comment, and I appreciate y'all as usual for supporting. Enjoy your Sunday.